Hello, tile friends. Welcome back to another episode of Tile Money Podcast. This is brought to you by the National Tile Contractors Association and sponsored by Laticrete International. Today, I have Martin Brookes with me. Martin, how are you today? Can you introduce yourself and your company?
I'm good, thank you, Luke. It's Heritage Marble and Tile Incorporated out of Mill Valley, California.
Nice, thank you. Before we dive into your business, which we're definitely going to do, what are your hobbies?
I like playing golf. I take care of my 8-year-old daughter, which is a lot of my time, and just chilling, hanging out, and relaxing in my free time, which is not that much. I do a lot of things, so it's very rare that I get a little bit of free time.
Yeah, I understand that. 8 years old, that's probably keeping you busy with a lot of, what kind of things is she into?
She sings with the San Francisco Girls Chorus, and she swims. She's an avid swimmer. She's on the swim team, so she's pretty active.
Yeah. Does she swim in the ocean or not yet?
No, swimming pool, not yet.
Okay.
I'm not quite comfortable with her swimming in the ocean yet.
I understand. That's
too many sharks.
Yeah, right there in Mill Valley. So what does your company look like today? How many employees is it? What do you specialize in?
I have 6 employees plus myself, 7 total. My employees are long-term employees, very well educated, trained. We embrace CTI and ACT from the beginning. And I'm very comfortable and feel like I can attend these events, and I don't have to worry about managing them too well over the installation. They take very good care in communicating and doing the install to perfection.
That's great. It sounds like you have a well-oiled team, oiled machine, a good team behind you, and that really helps a lot to grow a business. But it says something about you, too, and the way you run your business. So we want to get into that. What do you specialize in? Commercial, residential?
Residential, high-end residential. We do a lot of high-rise in San Francisco.
Okay.
But we do single families, too. And we go over the Bay Area doing, nice, good quality tile installs.
Okay. So what's a day in the life look like for you? What are your roles in the company?
Up at 5:30 in the morning. We meet every morning at our local Daltile, 311 in San Rafael. That's where I dispatch my guys from. We have a list of materials. They'll go out to the specific job. I wait there with them, dispatch them. As soon as they've left, then I will visit each job, go around, make sure they're okay, make sure the owners see my face, and I check in.
Yeah.
And then back to the office just after lunch, start doing paperwork, estimates, taking phone calls. 4 o'clock, I typically pick my daughter up from school, and that's the end of the day.
Nice. Well, that is a busy day. So what obstacles have you had to overcome growing this company over the years?
Well, for me in the beginning, started in 97, was hands-on. It was me, a helper, and a truck. And the biggest, working long hours, 7 days a week, building the business up. And of course, with that came recognition that, it's like the quality of the work. But then moving on, and I remember my wife saying to me at one point, you need to get off your knees. You start to need to take care of the business. Okay. And that was the biggest challenge for me because I was emotionally attached to the install side. It's something that I liked and love to stand back from and say, I did that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, having to let go of that and delegate responsibilities was a tough move. And so I eased myself out over a period of about 2 years from off my knees into the business world and then started taking more care of the business.
I see.
Once I did that and eased myself out, it was easy. But that was a tough transition for me, for sure, Luke.
I see. Yeah, a lot of my listeners struggle with that. They struggle with, giving responsibility and going over here for the day. Any tips to that? Trusting people.
Well, it's trusting people. I mean, in the beginning, I hired well and was able to retain. I paid them well, hired well, and trained them too. I mean, they didn't come with the skill set.
Right.
Just like I didn't have the skill set for running a business either. I had to find out the hard way in some cases, but learn off my peers. And that's where joining a group like NTCA helped give me the knowledge and try to avoid the pitfalls that most people make in starting a new business and, learning out the hard way. That's where the real value is with NTCA is the network and the camaraderie you have with the other guys where you can ask questions and you can try to avoid the mistakes that you're probably just about to make that will put money in your pocket rather than having money go out of your pocket was really key for me.
I see. And I see you're a 5-star contractor.
5-star
And
contractor, yeah.
and so you put your crews, your installers through the CTI program.
And the ACT, yes.
And-
And that's part of the process to be an ACT, to be a 5-star contractor.
Yeah. And once you do that, do you have any issues with them wanting to take off and start their own business?
No, I've been able to do a good job of retaining my employees. They get very good benefits, trucks. They very well taken care of.
Excellent.
And I appreciate that. I mean, my business is the installers. Without the installers, I would not have a business. So I understand the value that they bring to the table too. And they have families to feed, and they need to make a living wage, and they need to be felt respected, and also they need they need the opportunities that I have had myself, and they've not wanted to go out and do the business for themselves. They're very happy where they are, and it's good. The only thing is, with me being in business since '97, a couple of them are getting a little on the older side now, so I have to look and find out. We've just hired a new person who's on the younger side.
Okay.
But I have to try to ease my guys out also of being on the knees, and maybe into a more managerial role, or even maybe an employee buyout at some time to pass the business on.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you saying that, Martin. And it's really refreshing to hear, because so many of my peers, they struggle with that, and they struggle with training and investing in their crews, because even some people say, well, they could leave tomorrow. But it's really refreshing to hear that. And that's one of the reasons I preach business first and profit first, because you can invest back into the company, invest in your people, and build a company that really, why would somebody leave, like you said? Because you're treating them like family, you're treating them with respect and dignity. And of course, you profit in the end as well.
And I feel that my employees are actually proud to work for me, and they're proud of their achievements too.
Yeah.
The CTI and ACT stays with them.
Yeah.
But they're very proud of their achievements also.
Yeah.
They're very well looked upon in the industry, in the local industry. I mean, they're icons.
Yeah.
And the compliments that I get, and when I tell my clients, when they compliment them what they've achieved and continued education, they're blown away.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of a very few, or the companies in my area don't really invest back in the labor force. They're sent out to work every day. They're expected to perform without the training and knowledge of today's materials. And, unfortunately, a lot of it goes south.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like what you've done by investing back into your company and letting your customers know, that's helping you sell value. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we give true value. So we're not cheap, but the true value to me is giving an end product that stands the test of time and looks beautiful. They're blown away by some of the work when they step back, and it meets their expectations. That's the one thing we do. We meet our customers' expectations. We find out what they are up front, and we meet or exceed it at the end. And that's really what gives us a sustainable business and repeat clients. All my contractors I'm doing work for right now are contractors that go nowhere else. They just use Heritage Marble and Tile for every job.
Well, that's great to hear. Now, what advice, if you could go back 10, 15 years ago, would you give yourself any advice as a younger man that would help you grow faster, or mistakes you might have made?
Well, I made a few mistakes early on with, not running the business, like for profit. And I'd be more inclined to take a job fearful that the next job wouldn't be coming. And, again, it's like you start to look at the end of the job when you total it up, and it's like you broke even or even lost some money. So I would say, if you're going into business as a tile contractor, go in it to make money. Don't be afraid to be in business for profit. That's what a business is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're fearful of that. We're fearful that we feel that we're going to lose the job because we're making a profit.
Yeah.
And that's not something you should be ashamed of or fearful of.
Well, I really appreciate that. And that profit is money. And money is essentially a tool. And we know about tools. The more tools you collect, the more work you can do, the better job you can do, correct?
Correct.
So what are your roles today inside the NTCA?
I'm vice president for the NTCA. I sit on the Standards and Methods Committee, the Technical Committee, the Membership Committee. So I have a pretty big involvement within NTCA.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, we really appreciate all the hard work you're doing inside the NTCA. And, that takes commitment. Can you talk to us about why you do it? Why you take that time out of your schedule?
Pure passion.
Okay.
It's pure passion, and I get a lot out of mentoring other people, and for me to give back what I've learned along the way is so rewarding that I can help someone be better at what they do. Is very satisfying. It's very satisfying for me to know that being 41 years in the business that I can give back. It's a changed industry. 41 years ago, it wasn't like this. And it's gone light. The last 10 years has gone light speed. And I've had to keep up too. I mean, it's like I told someone the other day, I'm not born with the knowledge. I've learned it along the way. I've had to seek it out and also
I like that.
learn that. So
I like that.
no one's born with it. You got to seek it out, and you've got to play in the game too.
I see. Speaking of knowledge and educating oneself, do you read? Do you have any business book recommendations?
I do, but I read. I mean, I have about 30 publications come by my house each month that I read and go through them all. I mean, some of them are just fluff and advertising, but I try to pick out that key story and read someone else's story and where they are and what they've done and learn from that also. Yeah. But Tile Letter is my go-to magazine, my publication that I read. And I still like the print version. Yeah. I do a little bit online, but I like to feel it in my hands and breeze through it at my own pace. And that's really, very satisfying to me to read that. And I look forward to seeing it every month.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the member spotlights. And like you said, getting an inside look on others' businesses. And that's really what I'm doing here. Yeah,
that's the thing for me is learning about other members and their story. I mean, it's, we all have a story to tell, and just understanding and getting to know them better and how they got into tile. And, the more I see it's not large companies, it's more bucket and trowel guys just trying to make a living. Yeah. And that's the guys that I like that. I like that story, and I would like to help them along the way to put money in their pocket.
All right. Well, I'd like to help you help them. Well, thank you so much, Martin. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day here. And I know my audience is really going to appreciate this episode. So thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
You're welcome.
All right, Tile Money friends. Here's another Tile Money tip. And again, it is brought to you by Ron Nash with Leda Creek International. Ron, thank you again for joining me. And today we have the 4 modes of negotiation. I'm going to shut up and let you introduce this.
Perfect. All right. So tip number 2 in the series, 4 modes of negotiation. Now, there's a lot of different styles that people have and a lot of different ways that people interact when they're exchanging money or services or goods. The goal of this tip is that we start getting mentally into a system of when we transact with others that we don't have a zero-sum idea. Like if I give up something in negotiation, then they win and I lose, or there's just the wrong way to look at things. We want you to help you guys get into a mode of thought, which is I'm very comfortable talking about, giving concessions or taking concessions, and I want to figure out ways to navigate different modes. Okay, so modes of negotiation. There are 4 of them. Ready? I'm going to give you the 4. All right. Cooperative mode, competitive mode, organizational mode, and personal mode. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Let's start with cooperative mode, and I'll explain. All right, so cooperative mode of negotiation should be a business professional or a professional's goal in order to stay with a partner that you want to keep for a long time. All right, so for example, let's say Luke and I, we're working together, and he's buying from me, I'm selling him setting materials. Let's just keep it real here, okay? My goal is that I would create a relationship with him in a cooperative mode, which is we both win at the end of our deal. Let's say he's working on an apartment complex, and he's going to do the shower systems in the whole apartment complex. In a cooperative mode, I would be talking to Luke in this manner. How do we both win on this? What's the scope of the job? What are your mutual goals? Okay. Is there a way that we can work together that we have better deals as an outcome for both parties And then, is there a better deal for both parties that we can come out with?
Perfect.
So the idea is that both parties win in a cooperative mode. All right. This should always be our goal. The second is what a lot of people think that most of life is about, but that's not true on its face. But a lot of people immediately think that when you're negotiating with somebody, you're immediately in a competitive mode. Now, it's true that there is a principle of, small bits of elements of competition in every single thing that you do. But ultimately, in a competitive mode, the goal on the outside is that one party wins and one party loses. Now, I would be lying to you if I told you that I have never been into a situation like that. That's not true. There are sometimes, especially when you buy certain goods, durable goods, and you're in competitive mode. And in that regard, here's the tips that I would give you in order to survive. I have 3 different rules. Okay. One is defend your interest. You gotta have your interest defended. In transactional selling and in transactional purchasing, defending your interest is important. So there are 3 rules to help you defend your interests. Ready? Number 1, shut up. In a transactional mode, being secretive about your pressures is really going to help you out. Okay. Yeah. And the more and the less needy you can sound, the better you're going to do.
Yeah.
Number 2, don't trust your assumptions and estimates. Okay. A lot of times people think, and matter of fact, I see this all the time, is they'll say, well, they're not going to take this price. Well, there's a lot of assumptions tied into that. All right. Number 3, cost breakdowns. If you're a buyer, and especially if you're going to, let's say, buy a car.
Yeah.
And typically that's a competitive mode. Buying a car is a lot of competition. The dealer is setting a competitive mode with each person that they buy a lot of times, unless you happen to be buying a fleet of vehicles or something like that. Then you might be able to get it to a cooperative mode. But typically it's competitive. So what do you want? If you're a buyer, always ask for the invoice. Always ask for the breakdown of costs. Always ask for those things. Now, obviously, if you're a seller, never. And I hear this all the time, by the way. I hear people say, "Oh, my estimates, they're totally open. They're totally, I give them breakdowns of everything." I will tell you that over time, unless it's legally required that you do so, caveat. Yeah. Over time, a seller will do better by keeping packages rather than by giving breakdowns.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
Unless you are in truly a cooperative mode where you're mutually buying things or whatever. But in a competitive mode, never give a breakdown.
Okay.
All right. And then here's the last tip on the competitive mode. Always avoid or never, if possible, negotiate on a single point. And I'll give you what I mean by that. A lot of times in a competitive mode, a buyer will ask, "Give me your breakdown. I want to see how much you pay per hour." And then they'll pull out that hourly payment, right? And they'll say, "Well, I don't think you should bill me $36 an hour. I think you should bill me $32 an hour." Yeah. There's two rules that you broke there. Number 1, you provide the seller with a breakdown, and then they pulled like a Chinese menu. They're pulling one little bit out, right? And then they're trying to negotiate and chisel on that one little point. And I will tell you that that's dangerous. Right. So never negotiate on a single point. There's always something that you can increase the shape of the deal. Right? Okay. Organizational mode. Now, these last ones are going to be a little quicker. Okay. Organizational mode. Rarely does anybody negotiate with just one single person. And so there are 4 things that that you need to understand. People rarely negotiate alone, even if you're selling to homeowners. Really, what are you doing? You're negotiating with a whole family, usually. The mom of the situation has their needs and wants. The dad of the situation have their needs and wants in a nuclear family, and you see what I'm saying? So you usually have an organization. And if you're doing professional, like you're working with general contractors, that's usually quite a thick organization. So it's very important. You have to look for make sure that you're dealing with the person that can say yes. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people have done all this effort and work, and then the guy finally says, "Okay, well, let me get with my team and we'll see whether we can give you this contract."
Yes.
It's terrible. So if you find out in front in organizational mode, who's the power player?
Yeah.
Who can say yes?
That can be very discouraging when that happens. I always try to say, are all the decision makers going to be there? If I'm
Or even said like this, who else besides yourself will be giving you input?
Okay.
And it's a great way that you can pull things out without taking the face of the person that, you might be negotiating with, because a lot of times there are gatekeepers,
Interesting.
The decision-making tree is what I call that. Who's in the decision-making tree that I also should talk about? Never let anybody else carry your water. No one will carry your water like you do. So if you have a guy who's basically saying, don't worry, I'll sell you to these guys because I really like you. I always try to say, this is great. Is there a way we can get everybody together? Is there a way? Because no one will carry my water like I do. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Subtle influencers in the organization are important to know as well. All right. So the final point of this particular one is the personal mode. All right. Now, when negotiation happens person to person, it's important that you understand that people there's a theory called the iceberg theory. All right. So imagine an iceberg, right? Waterline of that iceberg. On top, you may be thinking, if this is all this negotiation is about money, goods, and services. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not true. It never is true. Below the waterline is what's important in a personal negotiation. So the personality of the person. Are you hitting it off? Do you have a good relationship with them? Have you exchanged trust? Do you think that this person trusts you or not? Yeah, it's really important. So what can you do to build trust? Yeah. Time constraints, workload, family events coming up. Hey, they got to get that shower finished because it's Christmas time and they have a bunch of family coming over.
Oh, I hear that.
That's important information. That's really good information, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things, and to kind of end this tip, I want to go through it again. Cooperative, that's always the goal. Competitive, I try to avoid that as much as possible, but I have to know that it actually exists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Organizational mode, are you dealing with the people in the organization that can actually say yes? That's important. And then personal, understand that everybody's an iceberg.
Yeah.
What you see on the surface is generally not the reason why they're in the room with you and negotiating. So you should do things to understand, one, which mode are you in? And two, how do I get to know these people better?
Nice.
All right.
Perfect.
There's your tip of the week.
That's great. That's good, actionable advice. And friends, we'd love to get some feedback from you. The very next episode, we'll have tip number 3, the strategy of concession making. All right, Ron, take care.